It's just through there in the thick bush. You can hear the classic call of an oxpecker, often associated with large animals like your giraffe. You okay there, Davy? Yes, giraffe are also probably one of my favorite animals. They're just so unique. They're just so different. Just evolution there in front of you. And they're on the edge of the evolutionary battle. Oh, I can hear him. He's moving off. Can't really hear it on the mic, but the very heavy animal. You're looking at about 3,000 pounds worth of animal there as it gallops away with its 4 very big hooves. The hooves are probably about this big, 20 centimeters in length. So longer than my shoe, and 4 of those. And obviously the objective of those hooves is for running, but they have got some amazing kung fu skills when it comes to attacking lions. Lions trying to jump and giraffe, they first have this very powerful backward kick, and they've also got this kick where they can sort of rock back on their front legs, and this front forward sort of Bruce Lee 6-inch punch, this chop, which I've seen hit a lion in the head, and the lion doesn't do very well. They can crack a skull open very, very easily. But unfortunately, we have missed that animal. He's moved off a little bit. The vegetation is quite thick, and shame. We're not going to chase him away. We thought maybe we might get a better look at him on the camera. Michael would like to know, how close have I gotten to giraffe before? In open area, I've walked with guests in just this, keep going in the zigzag line, and the giraffe kind of sits there and he just watches you coming and going, because the intention, they know, like a lion, if a lion's walking and it doesn't look at the kudu and it keeps walking, the animals will actually just watch him. And eventually I must have got within about maybe 12 yards of the giraffe before it got a bit of a realization that we were a lot closer than it had originally anticipated, and it took off. But you can do that with zebra and wildebeest. Your intention, focus it there when actually trying to get to this object here. You just zigzag, and eventually you can get quite close. But what often lets it down is that individuals walking with you will turn, and the animal obviously sees that. So, it's maybe not the best visual, but you've got to look at the giraffe the way I'm looking at you now to give you the impression that you're not looking at it. Which is kind of a conundrum, isn't it? Let's go, Davy. Julie would like to see some giraffe tracks. We didn't actually see exactly where it took off. We just crossed the road here to follow him. And the tracks that we would see if we found this one would be of it running. So you wouldn't get a very good idea of the size, because you'd mainly just get the toe, or the front of the toe. We'll definitely look for you. But while we look around and see if we can find you some giraffe tracks. I do have one in my book, but while we do so, we're going to basically go up to Hyena Ralph and guess where he is.
Yes, and from giraffe to our hyena den, which is still pretty much how you left us, everybody, because this little cub there is still just suckling from mom, but we haven't seen any of the others yet, and we haven't seen any other adults. We haven't heard any calls in the meantime, so I think we might be leaving them shortly, and we're going to have a look in the area to see if there's any hyenas moving around. Maybe we'll find them on a carcass. We also heard some lions roaring off a little bit towards the Mara River, so we'll go and check the plains down that side. Vegas Beauty Snob, you want to know how old are the males when they move off? Well, they suckle from their mom right up until nearly 2 years. So it's shortly after this that they are pretty much fully grown, and then they might stay a little bit longer, but it's normally between 2 and 3 years that the males will start to already be a little bit nomadic. And it seems that there's not too much data or research known about the males per se, because of their, I mean, it's difficult enough to follow these females, especially when they go out at night on the hunt, but there's not too much info on the males, which is very interesting indeed, and maybe we'll be able to follow up on them a little bit. But right, folks, I'll move on, and we'll see if we can find any other hyenas in the area. But in the meantime, let's send you on back down to Steve with, I think, a giraffe track.
Yes, thank you, Ralph. We did manage to find the tracks of this individual as it crossed the road, and all you can really see here is the front of the hooves where it was running. You can see how it's pushed back the soil there. That's the width, but you can't see the back of the track because it was on its toes. If you've ever run before and had a look at your tracks when you're running, all you're really running on is the front of your foot. And this was the one track, and there's another one here of the indentation of the 3,000 pound animal as it gets purchased in the ground. But just before it started taking off, we've actually got a much larger track here of the giraffe, and it's actually not as big as I said before. This is not a fully grown individual. There's the front and there's the back, and if I put that down there for you in the same direction, this is upside down now. This is the front of the track and that's the back, but they can get up to 20 centimeters in length, which is often the size of my shoe, which is a very, very big animal. But this is not a fully grown individual here, but quite a nice big surface area. And can you imagine that kicking you in the face with the force of a 3,000 pound animal? It would not be very fun. Okay, and the sound it made on this hard road, very hard to mimic it, but when you are a big animal like that, you can hear a giraffe galloping from quite a distance. The camel horse, as it is known, Camelopardus is the scientific name, and also known in Afrikaans as the kameelperd, which translates as camel horse. So is it a camel? It walks with both legs on either side like a camel. Doesn't look like a horse, so I'm not really sure. But we are going to continue on our quest. Herbie has assured me we are going to find a very good example of the Mercedes-Benz tree, and I still haven't heard any comments from you lovely folks out there about which tree you think it might be. The suspense is building. And while we continue, we're going back to Brent with Cheetah.
Well, we can definitely confirm now that I've got a good view of the female. That is indeed Miale. So it is a Miale and son, and it looks like they are pretty well fed. And you can see Miale with that very distinctive face of hers. I think out of the female cheetah, Malika and her have the most distinctive facial features, which make them quite easy to identify in quick sticks. And Miale, done well, caught something to feed you and the little man. And I think they're not going to be moving from this spot for the rest of the day. So I think we're going to head off to see if we can find the 5 boys shortly. I haven't heard any reports on them just yet, but I have got my network of spies feeding me information, and hopefully very shortly we will have a spot to head towards. But you never know what else you might find. There is always lions and leopard in this area. Now Ava is wondering, why are cheetah able to run faster than any cat? Now Ava, they've evolved differently to the other cats. There's lots of different reasons. They've got a very flexible spine, they've got a very long flat tail that helps for stability, really long limbs, and also semi-retractable claws, so they're able to get more grip when they're running, enabling them to go quite a bit faster, actually a lot faster, over a longer distance. So where there's lion and leopard and the majority of the other cats in the world are designed as ambush predators. They can do very fast speeds for very short distances. Their muscles are bigger and squatter. The cheetahs are longer and leaner, enabling them to keep up that speed for a longer time. But I'm hoping this morning is going to be cheetah filled. So I'm going to go see if I can find some more cheetah. Hopefully, before I find my next big cat, James Henry can find one.
That isn't a very amusing Sunday morning joke. No. So, the update on Tumba, and that is not Tumba, that's a waterbuck we're looking at, not a leopard. Old Tumba has headed into Torchwood, and that was found out by Rexon, who managed to pick up the tracks the other side of where we were looking at them early this morning, and he followed them all the way into Torchwood, which is the reserve to the east of us here. We are therefore coming further down to the south, and we'll go back around into the area where Thandi and her baby and Shadow and her baby, not Barbara, have been. So that is our plan from here. The waterbuck have now disappeared, nowhere near any water, down towards a drainage system. And when they saw us, they behaved as though they had never seen a vehicle before. This was their first time, and surely it must try and kill them. They ran into things, they ran into each other. The panic with which they viewed our arrival was quite comical. There's Nyala there. Good grief, look at this. We found 2 mammals in the space of less than 20 meters. Eat your heart out, Brent Leo Smith. Ah, hello. There is a wonderful example, as I was saying earlier, of that red coloration, and how to us with red cones in our eyes, that's really not camouflaged in the slightest. But if you only had green and blue cones in your eyes, well, then that might be a little bit more difficult to see. Now, of course, Brent probably will go and find another 3 or 4 big cats, in which case I will never hear the end of it. He will manage to impress it upon me even all the way from the Masai Mara. Now, this is a female Nyala, of course, on account of the fact that it does not have any horns. Nicky, most you say that cats are overrated. Well, today I'm going to agree with you completely. I mean, this is a magnificent creature to look at, isn't it? One gets a little blasé, I suppose, about these sorts of things. I was struck by it specifically when I was at the end of my work cycle last time, and I think 2 days before I went on leave, I went for a run with Steph, and I was running along thinking, oh, it's a bit hot, I'm a bit tired, and as we were running along the road, an elephant stepped out in front of us and wandered over the road. He didn't react to us at all, he just kept going. And I thought, good grief, what an unbelievable privilege it is to live in an environment where I can go for a run and I can see things like elephants. I mean, that really is, it's not something many people in the world are privileged enough to experience. And I began to try and see things like that sort of all the time. And when I look out of my bedroom window, there you might find a bushbuck walking, or you might find a nyala sort of strolling past, or a squirrel in the trees above. And there are so few people in the urbanized world of today that could ever claim to live in such a wonderful sort of situation in amongst wildlife. So we are so very lucky here, even if we don't find cats from time to time. You see how the nyala put its ears back as soon as I mentioned the word cat. Fair enough. I know you don't want to see cats, my dear. His ears really are quite something. I'd love to be able to hear like a nyala. What do you think Beethoven's Ninth Symphony sounds like to a nyala's ears?
It might be a bit like high-pitched.
Too much? Too much, you think? Too much treble, not enough bass in there. Okay. The harpy says that I would suit ears like that. Thank you very much. I think I would look like a donkey, yes. I think I would look ridiculous. That's probably what she meant, though. Okay, on we go. Stivovo has managed to track down the tree that he has been searching for since the early hours of this morning.
Thank you, James. I have indeed. We have managed to locate it. And Judy H., once again, your knowledge impresses me, and it is indeed the Bushveld gardenia, the Mercedes-Benz tree, and I'll come to that shortly for the identification, but we sit underneath this in the beautiful shade of this marvelous tree. And this tree was in fact traditionally planted outside of homesteads in local communities to ward off evil spirits, to keep away bad, sort of what they call muti, or bad magic. So we believe it probably worked for negativity, and it is, I believe, quite a positive tree. One of the other interesting sidelines that my Shangaan tracker told me years ago was that they were told as children if they had a problem wetting their bed, they were encouraged to climb this tree and it would alleviate their wetting of their bed problem. So I was wondering if I should climb it. I don't have a problem wetting my bed. I might have had many years ago, but let's have a look, shall we? Oh, this is quite an easy tree, in fact, to climb. I have seen many of these in the past that are, I mean, that was just too easy, in fact. I was watching some clips of Mr. James Henry yesterday, falling down, and I'm not going to embarrass myself like that. But I've seen many of these trees that are impossible to climb. Here we have multi-stem branches going out each direction. Often it's a stem that comes up and the branches go out. And every other one that I've seen has been impossible to climb. So maybe the mind and the need or the ability to figure out how to climb up is what solves the wetting of the bed story with local children. It's very hard to say, but I love those little local renditions and stories. So I have the book here, but before we jump into the book, I wanted to show you why it's called the Mercedes-Benz tree. And if I hold this down for you here, you look down, the branches here have got that Mercedes-Benz shape. Very easy to identify and characterize, and this is a dead branch, so what you're looking for is in fact the branches with the leaves, and you can still see the Mercedes-Benz shape with the clusters of leaves on the end. Okay, the leaves are edible, not very tasty, but is browsed by elephants, giraffe and kudu, but not in high demand. The fruit, however, which I have a lovely photo of here, actually will stay on the tree for most of the year, which helps in identification, and it is favored by kudu and baboons. But if we eat this fruit, it'll cause us to vomit. It'll actually purge ourselves, and everything that we have inside of us that we don't want will come out. So wonderful if you need to do a bit of a cleanse, but I think there are easier ways of doing it. But it is a wonderful tree, as I said, for traditional beliefs, for evil spirits, for preventing wetting of the bed, and Bushveld gardenia, an absolutely gorgeous tree, and this is probably one of the best examples that I've seen in the Bushveld today. We found 2 or 3 this morning that were in a very poor shape, And thank you, Herbie, for bringing us to this marvelous one. And we're going to continue on with our quest for those small and beautiful things. That was a nice one, Darby, thank you. But while we continue, folks, we're going to be walking down the road across here. We have Ralph in the Mara, and I'm sure he has something special.
Steve, and well, everybody, have you ever had that feeling like you were being watched? Well, I've got that feeling right now, and we've just stopped in amongst a herd of buffalo, and they are all watching us. They've got their heads up, they're ruminating a little bit, but it's lovely to be in amongst them. And we can hear the yellow-billed oxpeckers, tsoo, tsoo, and all the egrets walking around below their feet. And you can see as they continue with their ruminating daily chore, they're chewing the cud, almost in unison there, from side to side, grinding it up, trying to get it as fine as possible. But nice to leave the hyena den and come into quite a very large group of buffalo here. And you'll see what I mean when I say if you feel like you're being watched. A lot of them do have their heads up looking at us. And that's only half of them. The other half are just behind us, but obviously not easy to see from here. But it is a very large group of buffalo. And this is how they should be, in big herds. And then you get those smaller bachelor herds of normally your older males that get left behind by the larger groups that they would normally have been moving with. But once they get a bit older and they can't really keep up with the herd, they then get left behind. And that's why they form those little groups by themselves, normally of similar aged elderly buffalo, because at least then there is a little bit of safety in numbers. And Snazzy, you say that they have such white teeth. Yeah, they're not too bad. I saw there as we had a look at them ruminating. They seem quite clean and well looked after. Maybe it's all the lovely grass that they've been chewing on. Very good for their teeth. And you watch their noses. They're constantly sniffing the air. They've got their ears pointed towards us. But the biggest sense, definitely for buffalo, is their sense of smell. Because they can be standing like this and quite happy with our presence, but as soon as the wind blows a little bit in their direction, they all seem to almost get a fright and run off. Or back up a little bit. It's like that smell really hits home that we're human. And then they do get quite scared, or they can be a little bit more aggressive, etc. So you see how the egret's hopping along through the grass, always trying to benefit from the presence of the buffalo. And you see as they walk, they almost start to concentrate more, going for the insects in between the grass there. Quite similar to that of herons, how they wobble their neck before they strike. And a very similar bill, very spear-like. Remember that ground hornbills that we saw yesterday? Oh, that one looked like he got quite a big, almost a frog or so, the one wobbling his neck. Well, they both are now, doing the neck dance. But the hornbills yesterday got that tortoise, and they've also got a very sharp but much longer bill than these egrets. But you see how they do the neck wobble? And sometimes I think it's like they are just trying to act like a bit of grass swaying in the breeze, while they concentrate on their target and then a strike. You often see them doing the neck wobble just before the strike. There's a lot of insects moving in the grass here, and it obviously just takes a big foot or legs moving through the grass just to shift them a little bit, and then the egrets can spot them. And they're exposed out of their little hiding places, but you see they're constantly moving and constantly getting food. It's a never-ending story with the egrets following the buffalo. Watch, watch, watch. There we go. I wonder what he got. Oh, there it goes. And there's kills of all sorts of sizes, and not just lions and leopard and cheetah. Now, Carla, you want to know how many types of buffalo are there in the Mara? There's only one type, Cara, and this is the Cape buffalo. And obviously, you do get in the bovine family, you would find naturally occurring the water buffalo. I think you find in India. And then the bison, which is North American, I believe, and this, the Cape buffalo, the one that is endemic to the region, or the sort of sub-Saharan African buffalo, all pretty much the same. So we don't have any different species of buffalo. It's only this one, and very characterized by that specific horn shape. Females not having too much horn cover just above the forehead. The males are the ones with the huge boss. Those two look pretty much like females, and that one definitely a bull, where you can see very clear thick-set head. And within this group, you would have a couple of dominant males. You could also have a couple of dominant females. But it's very much a herd animal, gregarious, and they are very sociable as well. Now, I think we're going to move on a little bit, but while we do that, let's send you on back down to James, who I think might have found something.
No, Ralph, you give me too much credit. I have not found anything. No, we continue our fruitless efforts to find some kind of entertaining creature for you. I'm rather hoping for some marulas to cheer me up today. Sweet substances. Really, it has been quite dire in terms of our ability to find these kitties, which were all over the place yesterday, and sadly have moved along. It is not that surprising, as I always say to you, you go out of camp and you find lots of tracks, and I find it is almost universal that you will have a quiet drive. Let's check once more at this little termite mound, which I think, what did you call them, VM, earlier? You said safe houses, yes. So we're not having dens anymore, because this little youngster, Thandi's cub, is old enough now to kind of just stay in what VM terms a temporary safe house rather than a den. But this was the last temporary safe house over here. So we'll just have a quick look, and then we'll move along out. Very nice of Stephen to comment on my tree climbing ability in the negative today, especially if he has never seen me climb a tree, which I think is very unkind. There doesn't seem to be much going on at the safe house, except the mother-in-law's tongue. Now, shall I get out? Well, there's one way to flush a leopard, I suppose, to get out. Let me show you the mother-in-law's tongue, everybody. I am going to do it with some caution, but I have been driving through here 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times and not come up with a leopard, so I think we're probably safe. If you hear a loud growling noise and hear me squealing, you'll know that I was wrong. I wonder if I'm being foolhardy. Now, this could easily have been a temporary refuge. Anyway, this thing here that I'm pointing at, you got it? That's the mother-in-law's tongue. And it is so named. Let me see if I can get a piece quickly. There are no fresh leopard tracks here, by the way, so I don't think Thandi's baby's about to come out and say hello. What? The car's moving. Oh, the car's moving. It's okay, you'll end up in the bottom there, you'll be fine. Anyway, it's called a mother-in-law's tongue because it's very, very sharp here. It's almost like a blade, and it could probably cut you if you were, well, it's not very sharp, but it is like a blade, like a mother-in-law's tongue. I think I'll go around the back in case it comes forward. I will come and rescue you, though, don't worry. Yeah, there was a little hole in that termite mound where I suppose a little cub could have stayed if it was desperate. But I don't see any further tracks of either of them here, so I think we can probably confirm that this is no longer used. Donna, I don't really know. You say how high was the tallest termite mound I've ever seen? Brent found one on Arathusa once. We were having a termite height finding competition, and I thought I'd found a big one here that was about, I don't know, it was probably about 10 feet around. Brent found that one there, and I think it was probably a good 3 meters high, which is about 3 times 3. No, yes, 3 times 3 is 9, plus a few is, say 11 feet. 11 feet or so. Brent says it was taller than me. Yes, well, Brent, that's not really much of an achievement. It was about 11 feet tall. I think that must have been one of the biggest ones I've seen. I have then subsequently been past that termite mound. They get very big here. I mean, some of the ones here are the biggest you'll find, although you will find higher ones in some areas. I think there are parts of Zimbabwe, for example, and maybe even parts of Natal where the soil is slightly different, that they'll get higher than they get here. But in terms of mass and their sort of circumference and the amount of soil in them, I think you'll struggle to find areas where they are bigger and heavier than they are in this area. Thank you for that, Brent. I see Stivovo and Herberto and David over there. And there they are. I have to have a word with Steve about his comments around my tree climbing ability. I don't know what he's eating. He's certainly eating some kind of snack. Ah, there we go. They finally realized they're online or on air. Herbert is smiling because he was probably saying something amusing. There we go. David, I see, is awake, which is good. He wasn't when he was supposed to be this morning. That dreadful, dreadful, dreadful feeling of tack, 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 tack on your door. Hey, you gotta be up. Huh? All right, let's go back across to Steve and find out what he's eating and hope he doesn't choke on it.
I will not choke, thanks you though, James. I was exploring my pocket and found a nectarine that I'd put there earlier for just this occasion. And as we were walking along as well, we found what is the shell of a giant land snail. And you might ask where the interest there is in this for me. And first of all, I was talking this morning about diet and about calcium, and the locals used to take these shells, because this is a dead shell, the animal is gone. Ground hornbills, mongooses, things like that will eat these. Very high in protein, it's very juicy escargot in there. and the shell that is left in the bush, lots of white, lots of calcium, they would actually break this up into the food of babies. Locals, the Shangans, probably 50, 60, 100 years ago, who knows how much longer back than that, to add calcium to their diet for bone growth. So we were talking about diet, we talk about animals, tortoises and things needing calcium. We need it. The locals use the local resource. We have supplements that come from a very similar source. But another interesting story, an individual, I didn't work for him or meet him himself, but I was told a story by someone, so second-hand knowledge of someone who decided to farm these, because those of you who have eaten escargot out, it is actually quite nice. Whoopsie. If you enjoy the flavor of garlic, it's basically just a soggy garlic that you swallow. But he was farming these for export for the escargot market. And this is going pound for pound. So if you imagine the normal snails that you get about this big, can you imagine these guys? And this is only about 2/3 of how big as they get. So very big, juicy snail inside there. I don't know how well he did, but he started a business, and maybe some of you out there have tried these large guys before, but we'll put him back again, because that could be a nice home for something, and maybe a tortoise will come along and enjoy it, or maybe a local has a baby who needs some calcium. We never know, but we leave things in the bush where we find them. And on that note about Davy sleeping in this morning, his alarm just didn't go off, but as a team I woke him nicely just in time with a coffee, and he was happy. He was happy. But these things happen, you know. I mean, sometimes our alarms don't go off. We're waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning. It is dark. There's no difference between 12 o'clock and 4 o'clock when it comes to the light. So it is quite a mental issue. But if your alarm doesn't go off, it happens. It happens. And it's not something we enjoy. But I stayed just next door, so it's very easy to have gotten him up. And we are slowly meandering home, because my nectarine, all it has done is increased my appetite, and you can start to feel the belly starting to rumble. Ian would like to know what kind of mushrooms we have here, and that is a good question, Ian. There are some mushrooms that we get that actually grow. The termites, the fungus-growing termites, they actually grow. The name has eluded me, but those mushrooms we can actually eat, and we often find them just outside of termite mounds. They're nice, they're big, and you can almost chop them up and cook them like a steak. Beautiful. But most of the other mushrooms we find are gill mushrooms. I don't know the name of the mushrooms. I'm actually not too familiar with those, but most of them are poisonous, and we would leave them alone. But the ones grown by the termites are very, very tasty, and maybe we'll find some. It is the time of year when the termites bring the spores of the fungus from inside. They lay it outside for the mushrooms to grow, because the mushrooms need a little bit of sunlight for their activity, and then they grow spores, they produce, and then the termites take the fungus back down again, and the cycle continues. Okay, so I think, is this James again? Is he following us? Okay. Okay, so James has apparently just found Thandi. We're about 50 meters, about 50 yards away from where he's just seen his vehicle go off. So now we're going to have to do a really big detour to avoid this cat and her baby. So James, after all your hard work this morning, well done. It paid off, and we will send you across to James, who I believe is quite happy that he has finally found an animal.
We have found an animal, everybody. Can you believe it? It's Thandi and her little baby. Oh, hi. We found her tracks and came into this area, but the tracks were, I don't know if we weren't just lucky. I think we were lucky. She's going back towards where the tracks were, which is quite interesting. So we just stuck our heads in here. So I'll just ease forward. I think she's going down again, Wumpy, into the drainage. Oh, hooray. This is really exciting. This is exactly where she was the other day with her little kill. We'll just try and ease our way around. It's getting quite hot now, so I think she'll probably try and find some shade. Hooray. Thank you very much, everybody, for your kind comments on Yay James. It is probably more Yay VM. He actually managed to spot her again. I hate having to admit that, but it is true. Yeah, I can see that. We just need to see if we can get through here in the car. We might have to go round. Ooh, hold on, everyone. Sorry, Franklins, I apologize. Ooh, that's not good. Sorry about that. It's a very good thing it's a company car. She just went down in here. There she is, there's the cub. There's the baby, there she is, she's walking back up. Let's get in here. Oh, she's going into such thick stuff there. That's just exactly where we've come from. Let's be patient, let's be patient. Isn't that wonderful? Is she lying down? It looks like she may have lain down. Let me go back a little. She has lain down, she's cleaning the baby. We might just sort of slowly make our way round to exactly where we've come from. Yeah, we're going to do that. Sorry everybody. It's just a very awkward area, this. I'm not sure we'll follow the same route we took. I just want to be as noiseless as possible. Obviously quite difficult. I wonder if she hasn't been here since sort of yesterday-ish. Quite a few trees in the way. Let's go in this way rather than trying to follow that same path. Alright, while we try and get into a decent position, let's head across to Brent Deersmith. Please tell him that I have found 2 cats, and in fact my cats were moving, which I think is quite a lot better than his cats.
Well done, Jamesy, well done. Well, I've taken over the birds from you. We have a gloriously beautiful little Temix courser pottering around on the short grasses. Now, Adrian and I have been slipping and sliding our way through the Mara this morning. It has been incredibly slippery, but we've now come up on top of a crest where there's some quartz, so a bit of respite from the mud. And I'm just going to go a little bit further forward, away from those Temix, where I've got a nice high view over the Rongai Valley. And fingers crossed that with my binoculars I can spot the boys. No one has found them yet this morning, so they could be anywhere. The last place they were was probably about 2 kilometers that way, but they're definitely not up towards the area we were earlier where we found Miale and Son, so they could be down here. This is the balloon crossing area. I'm just going to stop over here where I've got a nice view of both the Rongai and the smaller valleys that come off it. I got mud all over my face from a sticky patch we went through just now. Alright, here we go. This looks like a good spot to pan and scan from. See if we can spot the famously fast 5. So binoculars, check. Now it's already getting warm, so I'm going to start looking in the shade under different trees or on the edges of the croton thicket. Although they might still be basking out in the sun at the moment. There's quite a cool breeze streaming through. Lots of Tommies, Grants, people having breakfast under a tree, buffalo, topi. Unfortunately, no cheetah just yet. Let's try from this side. Guinea fowl. Alas, not a cheetah in sight. They could have gone on one of their wonders. Sometimes they just sort of disappear right almost all the way to Lookout Hill. Where to look next? Okay, I think I'm going to keep on the ridges for a little bit. I'm tired of playing in the mud this morning. Let's stick on the quartzes. Okay. Hi Lisa. Lisa's wondering, will cheetah and leopard ever hunt each other? If a leopard gets an opportunity, it will try kill a cheetah, but cheetah will try avoid leopards. There's a possibility that would kill leopard cubs if they found them when mom's not about, but normally they would try avoid leopard at all costs. Leopards are much stronger and heavier than a cheetah. Oh, my chair's decided to create a life of its own and try escape. There we go. So I'm going to keep checking on these ridges. Gardenia trees like that one are ideal spots for them to scent mark. Maybe we'll get lucky and pick up some tracks. Or as James Henry would say, you cannot pick up a track. Maybe we'd be lucky enough to find some tracks rather than pick up tracks. That'd be quite difficult. And try not to join the Marshmallow Club, although I'm quite confident, even in this very wet, sticky weather or climate, I'll leave the marshmallowing up to Ralph and Taylor. Hopefully my search for the 5 boys will be as fruitful as James's search for Thandi.
Well, yes, hopefully it will. Hopefully also they'll be in a slightly more accessible position. I'm afraid we got a view of her lying down with her spots on the back, but we've got absolutely no other way of getting in there. So we're trying another angle from round here, and we'll see if we can't get a decent view. I suppose it depends on how playful the cub is feeling. You know, if the cub's feeling like having a bit of playtime, then they'll move around a bit. But if not, I think it's going to be quite difficult to see her. I could try and stick our heads in there. I think she's just slightly further around that way though. Yeah, she's just the other side of these logs and things. What do you think, Vim? Try and get in here. I was just saying it would be ideal if she was habituated to Ronald to just say, well, we don't need to bash our way in there, we'll just deploy him, he can just wander and sit next to them. But as VM then pointed out, Thandi would probably reduce him to a pile of spares in very little time at all. Now she's in these thickets. I don't think we're going to get a view. I'm sorry about this, everyone. Can you believe our luck today? Lucky and then really not lucky. We'll try one more angle. See if we're not lucky. Ooh. All right there, Vim.
Yeah.
So, a nice, I guess, example of where Ronald really would have a great application would be to put him down here, drive him up into the thicket. Only, of course, if she was habituated to him, which she isn't. Okay, while we continue to try and find a decent view of this lovely cat, let's go back across to Steve and find out if he is eating more nectarines.
Well, I'm about to eat the leaves of a buffalo thorn because they are delicious. They're like spinach. But there we have a little cricket who's using the buffalo thorn for, I'm not quite sure what exactly, but he's very cute. Very, very cute. And so as I move in to try and get some leaves of this buffalo thorn, I nearly got surprised by the fact that this tree here, the buffalo thorn itself, which is very edible, if you can get the leaves off without hurting yourself. Notice there's no milky latex, folks. Okay, and this 3-veined leaf, 3 veins from the base, very characteristic of the buffalo thorn. Oh, it's very tasty. But I nearly got confused here while David was busy filming the cricket. There's a tree right next to it here which actually looks quite similar. But don't let it fool you. Be careful, Dave. There's buffalo thorn branches here. Don't let it fool you, folks, because this is in fact the Tamboti, and this will actually kill me. And you can see that white latex. Okay, a drop of that in my eye will blind me. So very important not to get that. Even getting on your skin will cause blistering. So this is a method of defense against being eaten. And you can actually see it quite clearly there on the branch, Dave. Can you see that white drop? Tamboti, also known as African sandalwood. And I nearly got confused there. So don't. Make sure that you don't just feed on things. You have a look for things like latex. Buffalo thorn, it's wonderful. It's a good substitute for spinach. First lady would like to know if we have poison ivy. We do. I don't think it's indigenous here, the poison ivy we have. I think it came in with agricultural crops and such. But we do get thistles, which I also think come in from certain grass seeds, come in with certain things from Europe. But thistles and stinging nettle, things like that, definitely. But not indigenous that I am aware of. Not indigenous and quite painful to touch. Woozy would like to know, are there many invasive plants? I mean, in there, she says there. But in the savannah, not really. Not really. There's a huge proponent of it's difficult really for a lot of invasive plants to come in. And those you will find are along the river courses, the rivers that come from upstream through the agricultural areas, along those major rivers, the Sand, the Sabi, the Olifants, those rivers, yes. Along the river courses, there's a lot of different invasive species that have come in. But in and around these areas where there's not much water flow, not really any of those. But unfortunately, the Kruger Park, where we sit, we are on the eastern side of South Africa, and all of our rivers come from the west. And they come through agriculture, they come through industry. So anything that comes in from the west. And even if you clear up the entire park, all the river systems, they're just going to keep coming in. So that is an issue. Australia is the first country in the world to go with what is called the Catchment System Conservation Management Plan, where they've gone and they've got their conservation area from the top of the mountain, from the catchment, all the way down to the coast. And that's what we need to do. Unfortunately, we've got a big strip of land on the east of the country, and west of that is industry, agriculture, farming, all sorts of things. So almost impossible to keep up with removing those alien plants. A lot of the alien plants would be coming through would be moonflower, which is datura, lantana, which is a big issue in the waterland systems. Mesquite is another plant, but there's a number of them that are quite worrisome. But I haven't seen any in my little walks around here. But in your perennial, meaning constantly flowing streams and rivers, unfortunately, yes. It is definitely starting to get hot. We heard the characteristic call of the Sterling's wren warbler, which I've been told when that calls, it is going to be a very hot day. Davy and I are probably going to do a run with James later. We'll see how we go. And while we continue on with our exercises, I do believe Ralph is bumbling in the mire. I don't know what he has for you, But let's go have a look.
Yes, and folks, we are just driving here through towards the marsh area because we left those buffalo and before that the hyena, and now we're just on the search for anything particularly in this direction, in a little bit of a northerly direction that we're heading up towards the Olololo gate, but that's way beyond us. And with the smattering of rain that we did have last night, it made the paths and things quite slippery, so sometimes I almost have to go into autopilot because it doesn't really matter which way I choose to turn. We get pushed into the tracks that have been made by the other vehicles, and when it's wet like this you just need to try and keep up your momentum and just get going through. But we've seen, as we've been driving, a lot of hippo tracks and elephant tracks, obviously all those buffalo that moved across the road, so very nice. But I'm thinking of just trying to spot a couple of our lions in the area after having not had much action with the hyenas. That's obviously the next thing that we can try and go for, and then we'll see everything that we spot in between. But I'm sure all the elephants are still out in the marshy area, so we'll probably see a lot of them as we go through. But it seems like, at least eventually, James has found Thandi and the cub. That's wonderful. They're in Djuma. We've been learning all sorts of things from Steve. And with us, well, we wanted to spend lots of time at the hyena den this morning and watch all the greeting ceremonies and so on with the adults returning, but it seems there was too much happening for them to return just yet. And so we decided not to spend the whole drive looking at a hole. We'll rather move on a little bit and see what else we can find. And speaking of which, look what we've got just in front of us here. I don't know if any of you know what bird this is, but it is quite an interesting bird, and it is the largest goose of the region, that being a spur-wing goose, and you can see how it's just foraging through a little bit. They are vegetarian, more or less. And they've got spurs on the inside of their wings. It's almost like remnants of fingers or vestigial proponents. And they use that, they spread their wings out, and it's normally fighting between individuals, and males and females. Both of them will fight over maybe a particular pond or a particular part of the pond, normally about resources. You see how it's feeding in a typical goose fashion, picking up and then as it sort of grinds it up and pushes it back to the back of the throat. So they are quite large. They're larger than the Egyptian goose. The Egyptian goose then does move away from the spur-wing goose, and that's the largest one that you will see in our entire region, including South Africa. We don't get any bigger than that. So that's nice to see, and often see them. Obviously off a little bit in the background there we do have some elephants, but I think I'm going to continue on a little bit. I do want to see, sorry about that Craig, I do want to see what else we can spot a little bit further on. We have seen quite a few elephants already. Ravi, thanks for your question. You want to know, besides from the ostrich, which is the fastest bird on the ground? That's a very good question. Now, I'm going to have to think about this one, Ravi. Yes, because obviously in terms of all the ground birds, I think a secretary bird could be reasonably fast, but they've got quite long legs. Kori bustard, I don't think will be quite as fast as a secretary bird. I'm wondering the smaller little guys, like the coursers and the spur wings. The francolins, they're reasonably fast. Maybe a guinea fowl. Guinea fowl also quite fast. I'm thinking of also the ones that run in front of us along the road, and that's normally the francolins and the spur fowls, the guinea fowl. I think I'm going to put my money on a guinea fowl being the second fastest after a ostrich, but I think that because of that there's quite a big difference between the two. So there's my answer. I'm going with guinea fowl, but let's head you on over the other side of the river to Brent and see what he thinks is the second fastest bird to the ostrich.
Well, hello, we're still checking for the 5 boys, but while we do that, I say Rolf says after ostrich, fastest bird, guinea fowl. And guinea fowl is a good guess. I think it's probably one of the francolins, maybe one of the forest francolins, Lathams or Hartlibs. They're very quick, and because of where they live, they have to do a lot of running. They can't just take off because of the thickness of the forest, and they're all hunted by things like golden cat and serval. So just stopping on the ridge again for a quick pan. As you can see, there's lots of general game around, lots of tommies, topi, zebra, all around, but no sign of those cheetah just yet. Decision time. Where to next? I think I'm going to go to the right next. My spy network is having as much trouble as we are finding the 5 boys. So I've checked almost all the little crests. I haven't seen any tracks, but that doesn't mean they haven't walked yet. They could have walked earlier, before the rain went through, and there's a huge amount of hyena tracks as well in this area. And the hyena tracks could be following the cheetah, so obliterating the cheetah tracks. And you actually hear the sloshing, even up here on the high ground. It is still very wet. I've actually slept with the 5 boys right here. Well, James has found something that begins with an L, but it's not a leopard.
No, it is a lizard, yes. I'm afraid those cats have given us the slip, in that I think they're just lying there in the thicket. I don't think they've moved. We thought maybe she was taking the cub back to a kill, but I'm not sure. You may hear from my voice that I feel slightly dejected, bereft, mortified, sad. Kirsten says it's karma for my calling her a harpy. I don't think that's fair. I think she was very nasty to me this morning. I think everyone was nasty to me this morning. Steve was nasty to me this morning. He said that I mustn't fall out of trees. Brent was nasty to me this morning. He said I couldn't find anything. The fact both of them were completely correct is neither here nor there. You know, there are some things you don't say to people on Sundays. So this will be our last segment, everybody. We'll have one last look at the rock monitor, or tree monitor. You'll notice we are zooming slowly in order to keep up with the melancholy of this atmosphere. It is very dramatic. You've done a very good job of being dramatically zooming. Well done. We're going to have one last look for the leopard. If you don't see us again, it's because we haven't found the leopard, because our competence is insufficient. We're going to hand you over, everybody, now back to the Masai Mara to Ralph Kirsten, who's having a lovely day with some elephants. Lucky old him.
Thank you. Yes, everybody, we are heading just towards the one little wet section that I might need to go through, so you can probably join us on that little fun section. And then I think we're going to head up towards the foresty area with that very big wooded valley, and we'll see what birds we can find there. Maybe we'll spot a black rhino, maybe we'll see some lions, but I just want to have a look at this little river crossing here and see if we can get through. Yeah, it looks pretty much fine. Let's just take our low range. Here we go, hold on. Not too bad. Oh, we got some stones in the brakes. Let's just try and drop them out. Okay. Right, I see some elephants up there, but I'm seeing them pretty much everywhere. I'm looking for one of those horned animals or one of those furry animals, so that's what we're looking for now. Obviously, if we get nice and close to some of those ellies, we will definitely stop, but let's see how we go. It's been a little bit of a quiet drive this morning, but that's how it goes sometimes. Seems like everybody's enjoying their Sunday. Nice and quiet start to the morning. Maybe by this afternoon there'll be lots more action, who knows. I always like driving up towards this forested zone. There's always some different birds. You know, it's a bit of a change of the eco zones. Not so much your grassland, more into your riverine type vegetation, because it is part of a drainage line, and a lagau, or what we just crossed, is probably a resultant of that whole drainage line. And lots of trees around, so it does make for a different habitat, both on the ground and in the canopy. So very interesting. I'm always hoping that we just find a leopard poking his head out. And just over here, they're always quite skittish, though, I find here in the Mara. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to see one. I just want to stop because we've got some mongoose running through the grass. But as I say, here in the Mara, they actually keep giving us the slip. They're quite scared of the vehicles and they keep running off before you even get a chance to get them on the camera. Anyway, it seems like they've done exactly that, so I'm going to keep on going. Shame. They're beautiful mongoose, the banded mongoose, and we do seem to... Thanks, Kirsten, telling me in FC that animals giving us the slip seems to be the theme of the drive this morning. Well, at least I'm continuing on nicely with the theme, if that's what we can say, because those banded mongoose just gave us one look and disappeared into the grass. And it seems for me that we're seeing the banded mongoose here like we do see the dwarf mongoose in Djuma. You can see both on either side as well, but it seems like the dwarf mongoose, I've only seen them around the Serena area, and they've got a very olive looking coat to them, almost like the olive baboons, a very similar color to that. So they're not as dark as the ones in Djuma, but same species, obviously just a slight color variation. And you do also get banded mongoose in Djuma, but the numbers seem to be the inverse, different sides. So let's head on up here into the forest. Let's hope we don't get stuck. If we do, we'll get out ourselves, no problem. Alright, folks. So while I make my way up towards the forested area here, see what's hanging about, let's head on over to Brent and see if those cheetahs are still giving him the slip.
I gotta find them for them to give me the slip. We haven't found them yet. So we are still trying. I'm heading back now up towards their normal area in case they were just really lying in a thick spot where we couldn't see them. But again, we've been slipping and sliding much better. This poor vehicle is going to need a good wash after we get back, because I don't think it's going to get much drier. No, nothing out here, nothing. Dearie me. Let's try a different tact. Whee! So as you can see, there's plenty to eat about. Tommy's, Topi, the odd group of wildebeest every now and then. Oh dear, it looks like a tractor's got stuck. I'm definitely going to avoid that road. Tractors can make a mess of a road, and when they get stuck, they make a very big mess of a road. Hello, Toppies. Hello, Toppy Tops. The babies have got so big. You can see the little horns coming out. There you go. There's a little one close to us. There goes one. Oh, there we go. You got him. That's the one. You can see the little horns poking out. Now they're already capable of very high speeds at that young age, and you've got to be to avoid cheetah out here. A lovely little group of topi. So, as I said, there's lots to eat, but no sign of the cheetah. Now, it is, as I say, very slippery and sticky. We've done some nice sideways slides through the mud. So, I mean, I've checked this area extensively. I maybe should have gone a little bit further to the east. Maybe they're closer to Sekanani, so I'm going to slowly move in that direction. Let's see if we get any luck there. Oh, here we go. Time to start slipping and sliding. And we're up on top of the crests here, so that just tells you how much rain we actually had last night. There we go, slippery, sliding. Sometimes it's quite fun, driving sideways. Of course, we don't have to do it all the time. Not too slippery here. Oh, hang on. What is going on down there? No. EP is wondering, do we ever get little animals crossing right in front of the vehicle, like squirrels in the US? You do, occasionally, especially at Djuma, less so here. Oh, there's the stuck vehicles. We're not going to hang around there too much. I'm trying to get up onto that ridge over there, but getting there is easier said than done. So normally all the roads are open. Now you've got to be quite careful about which road you choose. Otherwise, you join Rolf, Taylor and Jamie in the Marshmallow Club. Well, it seems like I'm not the only one who's slipping and sliding. Let's go see how Rolf's doing.
Thanks, Brent. Well, yeah, we've just stopped because we have been slipping and sliding all over the place. It's quite wet everywhere in the Masai Mara, I think, but we've just spotted some very pretty birds up there on the branch, so we thought because everything's been giving us the slip, that we should just stop and have a look here. The top one definitely, oh yeah, they're both lilac-breasted rollers. So nice to see two of them on a branch next to each other. And here Brent was talking about animals that just run out in front of the vehicle. Well, when we were driving back from Serena, we were trying to get back into signal area, so we were shifting along a little bit in the very early morning, and there were a couple of jackals that were in the road, and I nearly hit them. Luckily turned off just in front and just missed them. Shame, but I woke them up quite rudely. But these rollers doing a lovely little dance there, probably a courtship display. Nice to see a pair of them. So there's often where you need to take evasive action just to try not to hurt little creatures and things on the road. We also had, when I had to get that toad out of the puddle in front of us, you often have the animals coming into the puddles on the road, so you do need to be a little bit careful when you go through those. But it's been one of those mornings where we haven't seen the usual suspects, so we've got to look for some of the more common things that we sometimes just drive past. And we do see a lot of lilac-breasted rollers, but we do need to take the time to sit and enjoy them. Now, Topner, you're wondering why they don't make more hardy roads in the Mara. Is it because of the soil? Absolutely, because you see, we have a lot of black cotton soils here in the Masai Mara, which is a very sensitive sort of soil area and zone wherever you have that kind of soil, and the tracks would cut into the soil very easily. It's like a fine powdery type soil, so when it gets wet, it almost becomes just like slosh, and with the vehicles you really cut into it, and it also cakes your tires, so you land up having like slicks, and so it is quite difficult sometimes driving through it. But remember, in a lot of parks and national reserves or national parks, etc., they normally put in quite a substantial road network where they compact the soil and put down gravel, and some of them even put tarmac on top for that particular reason, to stop everybody driving all over the place and cutting into the soils, etc. But they can't do that everywhere, so you do have some tracks, and after rains, they very often close some areas down because they get very slippery, and some places you get stuck quite a lot. So you wouldn't want to go there after the rain anyway. But that's the reason also here in the Mara Triangle, sort of between the main road and towards the river road, that you're not allowed to off-road because those tracks cut too deep into that black cotton soil type areas. And then when it's closer to the Olololo escarpment, obviously into those grasslands, the area where we go with the hyenas, there it's allowed to drive off-road because the soil is a lot more stable, and it doesn't affect it as much if you drive off-road there. So that's important to remember. But nonetheless, even on these well-worn tracks, it can still get extremely slippery, as you find here. And sometimes you can't even choose which way you want to go because the holes are quite deep. Alright folks, while I try and negotiate this little section here and get us up towards the forest, let's head you on over to Brent and see if he's stopped his slipping and sliding.
Well, the only reason I've stopped slipping and sliding is because I've stopped to look at some yellow-throated sandgrass. Can hear them calling. such funny noises. So the males are the ones with a prominent yellow throat with a black band. There's 2 of them at the back, and there's 2 females ahead of them. Now, we see a lot more of them on this side of the Mara than we do in the triangle side. I have seen them in the triangle, but here on the short grass, they seem to really, really enjoy this area. I do enjoy them. Definitely one of my favorite sand grasses. Big flocks of them around at the moment. Okay, let's continue on our slipping and sliding. Oh, there's a hyena just popped his head up. Let's see. Now you want to be careful. You don't want to be in too low a gear. So there's too much power, which will actually cause you to dig in. Jamie's saying I'm the founding Marshmallow member. Yes, however, that was in a car that didn't have 4-wheel drive, so it doesn't count. Hello, Howard. A hyena enjoying the puddle. Now it's decided it's time to move off. You can hear those sandgrasses making lots of noise. I love the sound. Yes, hyena. I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about the sandgrasses making all the noise. And you keep your noise generally to the nocturnal hours. Let's have a look at these sandgrass that are calling. Here we go, in front, just in front of that. There we go, you got them there. Those are the ones that are making all the noise. Of course, now they stop. It is quite a comical sound. Okay, I'm going to keep moving on a little bit. I'm going to see there's some vehicles coming, slipping and they're sliding their way towards me. So I'm hoping maybe they've got action on the 5 boys. Yay, a little bit of hard ground. Ravenlock's wondering, do I think hyena are the most well-fed animal in the reserve? Well, definitely the most well-fed predator in general. It's very seldom you see a hungry hyena. Now, they are just so adaptable that they are able to take advantage of all sorts of food sources, whereas the other predators are far more catholic in their diets. So hyenas are generally the best well-fed most of the time. Here we go. A bit sticky again. Let's try to stay out of that. So I am hoping that the boys aren't too far, and they obviously maybe had a big meal last night and decided it wasn't worth moving this morning. And we will find them at some point today. That I'm quite sure of. They do go on some big wonders sometimes down towards Lookout Hill and Kikarok, so maybe they went on a wander last night. Hopefully they wander back close to camp again. Yeah, that road is horrible, so I'm going to go this road. Okay, well, I'd try stop and get some information from some vehicles coming past. Let's go across to Ralph to see where about he's bubbling.
Thanks, Brent. I'm just going up a little bit, folks, just so that we can get a view over these elephants and we can see a bit of the vista, because the grass is very long here, and although these elephants are now quite near to me, they are in the long grass, and it almost takes them up to about half their body. Here we go. There's a bit of a nice spot. But it just goes to show how long this grass actually is. And we can stop here and just watch them for a little bit. And it's a nice spot. Sorry, it's directly into the sun, but at least there's some shade there at the back. And yes, these elephants just happily grazing through this grassland here, all feeding on the red oak grass, or Tomida triandra, one of the most nutritious of all the grasses. And it is fantastic for the elephants, and it seems that they can obviously survive on it. I never knew that they could survive just on grass. I thought they did need to supplement with quite a mix, but it's obviously so nutritious that it can sustain the largest mammal, a land mammal, which is very nice. And it's cleared up quite substantially. There's no more clouds around. The mist is lifted, and it's warming up very nicely now. We're probably into mid-20s or mid to lower 20s Fahrenheit, centigrade, and mid-60s Fahrenheit. But the elephants are very happy just walking through here, and they sometimes also do make the roads a little bit more difficult to drive on, because when it's wet and they walk on it as well, they do start to make their own trail. And then if they go off the road, then the trail leads off the road. And once you get into that autopilot sort of deep within the tracks, then it can actually lead you off the road and sometimes make you get stuck. Now, Tweety Bird, you're asking if anyone has ever broadcasted classical music out to the animals to see how they react to it. They haven't done it here in the wild, I don't believe, and I don't think that it would be really acceptable by the rangers, etc., because it's not really a natural practice. But I do know that they have done it in some safari parks and in zoos, and they say that the more intelligent animals do find it very soothing, and so they do play it for them, especially for animals that are normally gregarious, sociable animals that are isolated for whatever reason within a zoo on their own. They say that music does help calm them and make them feel a little bit better. It seems so. Anyway, so that's all I know about music, and they do say that they have used a little bit of classical music. So elephants and orangutans and animals like that, maybe even the odd gorilla has been calmed and soothed with some nice relaxing music such as classical. So I'm sure that elephants would definitely enjoy a bit of classical music, but I think out here in the wild they've got enough of the bush music coming from the little birds and the thunder from the sky and the other animals that move around, all the chorus that we constantly have, the robins, the true songbirds, keeping us all very entertained with their lyrics and the way that they sing their songs. Remember, the robins are the true songbirds. They actually sing real tunes, where a lot of the other animals is yes, they try to sing a song, but it's not. It's more a bit of noise in comparison to the robins. They're the true artists of the bird world, I would say. And lovely to listen to them as well. The scrub robins, they make a very nice tune. So you can see also that it's warming up quite substantially just from the elephants flapping their ear flaps, getting the radiators working a little bit. They're not going over time, but they are just pushing them forwards and backwards every now and then, as opposed to early this morning. You see there? Early this morning there was the ears were almost right back against them, and there was no movement whatsoever.
So, folks, it's been a relatively quiet morning, as I've said. We did struggle a little bit. We tried with those hyena, but it was very quiet there. And the adults, maybe we'll try again with them tomorrow morning or following morning. It'll be interesting to see what's actually been going on there. I'm pretty sure that they've gone out, they've found some food, and so they'll be returning. Maybe it's worthwhile even having a look there this afternoon. I'm not going to be on drive this afternoon, but I'll mention it to Taylor. It might be something she can follow up on. Otherwise, I'll head on out there on my next drive. It's always interesting to see why the hyenas have stayed out. It's normally because of food. And maybe they've got another clan that they've been having to have a feud with. But other than that, yes, Brent on the other side of the river, I'm sure he's going to catch up with all those famous cheetah very soon. But folks, I want to say thanks to everyone up in Djuma. We're heading to the end of our drive now. Thank you for watching. It has been absolutely fantastic, and we hope to see you again later. Folks, have a nice day, and till next time.